Hello, Welsh Forest Focus. The new season is upon us, and every Nottingham Forest fan seems full of optimism. But what of our opponents at the City Ground tomorrow in Bournemouth? Joining me to give the opposition view on the game is yet another Matt Davies, in Matt from the Cherries Red Army podcast. Matt, how are you doing?
I'm well, Matt. Yeah, great to be on. Quite coincidental, isn't it? Too. Matt Davies is on the show.
I know, yeah.
Classic Welsh name. Yeah, one's from the South Coast and one from the East Midlands. But
Exactly.
great to be here, Matt.
We had another guest on last week called Matt Davies, who's a Forest fan. Yeah, Forest fan, same age as me, lives by me, got two kids like me, yeah, and looks like me as well. So it was a bit weird, but yeah, good to have you with us. Good to have you with us. Like we said, Forest fans are really optimistic going into this game. Bournemouth are coming off the back of a good season, but there's kind of transfer context around you guys. How are you feeling about this season, just in general, before we get into this game?
Yeah, I think mixed feelings, really. I think it's been a little bit of a turbulent pre-season, shall we say, which we sort of half expected. I certainly did. I felt that if we still had Dominic Solanke within the squad at the start of this season, we'd have done really, really well after what he achieved, his exploits last season. Not just his goals, but everything he brings to a football team. Really, his work rate, how he links play, comes deep to receive the ball, and everything he offers. Not just the goal scoring side of things. He obviously had some suitors, and it was a question of whether anybody was brave enough at this point to pay the money. Tottenham have obviously done that. They've met the release clause, and it's not left us a great deal of time to source a replacement, really. So, as pre-season's gone on, I think it's been a positive one. I think we've obviously lost Lloyd Kelly as well to Newcastle, to our old friend Eddie Howe, who obviously knows Lloyd very well. So he's taken him from the club. He ran his contract down, so he's gone on a free transfer. We've probably lost out on a considerable amount of money there. So you're sort of thinking there's two key players come out of the squad. Obviously, there's been other departures as well, not such key to us. But those two alone, Lloyd Kelly and Dominic Solanke, the worry for me was how we were going to set about replacing them. I think we acted quickly to replace Lloyd in the shape of Housen, or from Juventus. I think that'll be a great signing for us. Left-sided defender, so it's a sort of a like-for-like replacement, and he looks the real deal. So I'm quite satisfied with that. But in this league, as you know, Matt, you've got to keep strengthening. You've got to keep pushing on year, just to stand where you were the previous season, probably, because everybody else around you is going to do the same. And we look at this point in time, as we speak, a little bit weaker than what we did at this point last season. Now, the timing of this show is great because there's been transfer activity, I think, for ourselves this very day, in the shape of Evanilson coming across from Porto for a large transfer fee. I think 40 million is the reported figure. And he's a player I really like. I've not that I know too much about him, but I've seen him play before for Porto in Champions League and in the Portuguese division. He brings a lot of quality, and he'll score goals, I think. It's a big transfer fee, but with the money we've got for Dom, we needed to shell it out. We need a sort of a like for like replacement that can come straight into that 9 role and offer real quality. So, really and truly, even with the signing of Evanilson, there's other players linked as well. I think there's the goalie from Valencia that's going to be signed by Liverpool that could be immediately loaned to us. Mamadashvili, I think it is. Now, he looks the real deal. And Neto was questionable for us last season. That was probably one area we did need to strengthen. But all in all, as we look at it now, Matt, are we stronger than we were when we left last season? The squad as it is, possibly not. I think there's still bits to do, and there's time to do that. But I think the signing, certainly of Housen and of Evanilson, hopefully, they're the critical bits. They're replacing the quality that we've seen leave us. So it's what we do from here on in, really. I think as to how optimistic I am about the season ahead. So probably the answer to the question in a roundabout way, Matt, is I'll let you know on September the 1st.
Probably the same for every fan in a way, isn't it? I did see the keeper who had a great Euros, and I thought, obviously we've got loads of keepers. We've signed 7 since we went up, but we still haven't really nailed that position. So I did wonder if we'd be in for him, and we were linked with Evanilson pretty strongly. So I did check him out, and he's got really good stats. It's a lot of money. I suppose Forest fans will have 2 questions about him, or one in particular. Can he play on Saturday? I suspect the answer is no. So because he would have to really rush it through before noon on Friday. So are we still getting you at a good time, do you think, assuming he doesn't play?
Yeah, I think so. If I'm being honest, from a Bournemouth fan's point of view, if you're a Forest fan, it's probably a decent time to play us. The fact that we have lost Solanke, like I say, we've lost Kelly, we've lost, there's a couple of we've got our Unesu now, who's one of our sort of other number nines that could step into the Dom Solanke role potentially. He's out injured as well still, so he's not going to make the game. So we've got a couple of other injury doubts. Obviously, Tyler Adams across the midfield, who's USA captain. We signed him from Leeds last season for a big transfer fee. He's hardly played. He's barely played 180 minutes of Premier League football for us. Not even that probably. So he's still out as well. So that's a big loss. So across down the spine of the team, I think there's some doubt over Neto as well. Neto wasn't available for one of our last pre-season games against Girona last week, and at the moment he's our number one. So if you look at the spine of our team at the moment, there's key players missing. There's some speculation regarding Marcus Senesi as well, as he's got a new agent apparently who's sort of rumoured to be touting him about for a big move. So yeah, looking at it down the spine of the team, there's some big losses there for us. So it probably is, as we sit here now, a good time to play us for you boys.
Yeah, new agents are like the curse, aren't they? When you hear that, we had it with Brennan Johnson, who was always going to go, and Nico Williams this summer, Murillo. They're still both here, but they're either after a bigger contract or they're after a move. So that's what normally happens, I think. Yeah. So assuming that Evanilson isn't playing, who's up front? Is it Jebison? Is it Semenyo? Semenyo's a good player, but it's a big loss, I guess.
Yeah, I think I was at the Girona friendly last week. We won 3-2, but how strong the Girona team was! I think they got spanked at Newcastle on the Friday night. So I think they sent a side up to Newcastle, a side down to us on the Saturday. So there wasn't too many first team regulars really in that Girona team. They still look quality. I mean, they've got a great squad and they've done really well. But we beat them 3-2, and we had Daniel Jebison up front in the 9-role second half. He actually scored one of the goals. But it's a bit of experimentation from Areola. So he started, believe it or not, with Philip Billing in a bit of a false 9 role. I think Justin Cliver is an option to play there. Anton Semenyo is an option to play there. I don't like that option at all. I much prefer Semenyo wide. I think he can do a lot more damage there with his pace and power. Cutting in, he can use both feet. He causes fullbacks and defenders all sorts of nightmares when he's running at them with pace and power. Don't think he's a natural number 9 for me to lead the line in the Premier League. Justin Cliver is your classic 10, to be honest. He plays off of a number 9 and is very, very effective in doing so, and has begun to show some real quality. Whether he can adapt and play the 9 role is a possibility on Saturday. So we've got a few options, but none of them ideal, with Unai out of the picture as well. So it really will be interesting to see what Areola goes for in that particularly in that 9 position on Saturday.
It's interesting. As you're talking, there's quite a few links between us of, almost signed for us, went to you, maybe vice versa as well. I mean, Areola was linked with us quite a few times. What have you made of the job he's done overall because he started last season so stickily, and then suddenly you were like top 4 for him for a while. What do you make of him overall?
Yeah, I think it didn't sit easy with me. I thought Gary O'Neill did a fantastic job for us. Really good, honest bloke. He connected. I connected really well with him. I really liked Gary O'Neill. Even before he came to the club, I really rated him as a footballer down the road down the coast at Portsmouth. As a pundit for Sky, I thought he talked facts. He talked sense, and I really thought he'd done a great job in keeping the club up. Good, honest job. Good, honest professional and manager. And I felt he deserved it. He deserved a crack at it. And so bringing Areola in to start with didn't sit easy with me. And of course, he didn't get off to the best of starts. It was always going to take time for him to bed in. Completely different style of play, completely different person, completely different manager. It's come from La Liga. It was going to take time to adapt. But I think from early November onwards, we could see what he was all about. We could see the style of play. We could see what the plan was. We just had a really tough start, and it just took time to bed in. But once it did, the penny dropped, and you thought, I get it. I get why the owners have gone down this route now. The style of football, much more expansive, high tempo, front foot, the pressing game, the tactics in game, on the bench as well. Everything that he brought to the squad and to the role as manager was a step up. With the greatest respect to Gary O'Neill, it really was. The transformation of Ryan Christie into a classic sort of holding midfielder from a winger He put Lewis Cook in the back four at times, where you thought, what's he doing? But he put a ball playing footballer into the back four when we were chasing the game, because we knew we were going to have all of the ball. So Lewis Cook, classic for that role. It's just certain things that he did, thinking outside of that box, that you thought Gary O'Neill wouldn't have thought of that. Scott Parker probably wouldn't have thought of that. Jonathan Woodgate wouldn't have thought of that. And even Eddie Howe maybe wouldn't have been that inventive in his tactics and his coaching. So some of the things we've seen and some of the football that we've witnessed has just been pure entertainment, really, from a Bournemouth fan's point of view. And we've loved it from November onwards. It's been a great ride, really, and enjoyed every moment.
Yeah, Scott Parker's a funny one. He keeps getting jobs, but he's at Burnley now. Yeah.
And he will do well there, Matt, because he's got the squad to do it, and he knows how to get out of the division. So Scott Parker will, inevitably take Burnley up a division, and you can't argue with his record. But he stinks the place out in terms of his style of play and in terms of his persona, really, and who he is as a manager, and how he approaches the media and all the rest of it. Just didn't go down well at all at Bournemouth.
One of the things we were talking about, we did our preview this morning, more from a Forest point of view, but we always discuss the opposition. And one of the things we said about Bournemouth was, when you look after this game, I think it's Newcastle, Everton, Chelsea, Liverpool. So we were wondering how Bournemouth go about this one. Do they come and attack because they think, oh, those are tough fixtures after, or do they view it in isolation and sit back and maybe take a point or try and nick a 1-0? How do you think they go about it?
Yeah, I think we've got a good record against you, haven't we? Particularly in recent,
tell me about it.
Seasons at the City Ground, and that, I think we've rode our luck. I must be honest. Last season was a case in point, wasn't it? With the sending off, which was, we all know, let's be honest, that as a neutral and on both sides, it was a ridiculous decision, but it allowed us to ultimately win the game. And I was there again for the, we were 2-0 down at halftime. One of Gary O'Neill's first games in charge a couple of years ago, and come back second half to win 3-2, which was an incredible second half display, but must have taken you boys by surprise, really. So we've had our days in the sun particularly up at your place, and you sort of thinking to yourself, it's not going to go on forever, and one of these days up there we're going to get done. I'm always positive as a Bournemouth fan, but you can't help thinking in the back of your mind that this could be the time for Forest. Forest gain a bit of revenge, if you like. So how do we approach it? I think Iraola only knows how to approach games one way, really. Yes, he's astute enough to know that when you set up at Manchester City or a Liverpool or an Arsenal, you have to approach things slightly different. But he's going to be front foot. He's going to press, and he's going to look for opportunities on the break, particularly to break at real pace and to catch you off guard and pick you off. So he'll approach it, I think, the same way as he approached it last season with you. But I don't think it'll be any different. He'll feel like we can go there and win the game. So I don't see any sort of different type of approach from him, to be honest.
I'm going to put you on the spot in about 20 seconds to name your predicted 11. But just before that, a word for our sponsors, the Trent Navigation. With the video, just to remind you that you can enjoy all the build-up to the match down at the Nav with Simon Fotheringham as your match day host. Changed my framing a bit. I was kind of just like my chin was in there for a while. Right, you've had about 20 seconds to think about a predicted 11. So, what are you expecting to be the 11 on Saturday?
Yeah, it's a tricky one with so many question marks in so many positions, namely the goalkeeping position, maybe one of the centre back positions, certainly the number 9 position. It's a real tricky one to predict. If, as we're sitting here right now, the fact that Neto wasn't involved last week, apparently he's got some sort of injury or something going on there. Mark Travers, for me, may take the goalkeeping slot, so he may start. I mean, he's a great keeper. Loaned him out to Stoke last season. We called him back. He's had minimal sort of Premier League experience, which has been a little bit harsh on him. After, I think, a couple of years ago, we got beat 9-0 at Anfield, and he was between the sticks that day. Scott Parker pulled him out. Gary O'Neill continued pulling him out because it obviously affected him, and he never seemed to recover from that and get himself back in until he went out on loan. He's back with us now. Great keeper. He's got a great future, but he needs regular game time. So as it stands with the situation with Neto, I would say that he might just get that opportunity on Saturday and be the goalkeeper. We've signed a right back from Barcelona, obviously in recent days. Araujo, I think is his name. Comes highly rated. However, our Mr. Reliable Adam Smith, who seems to defy the odds year after year after year, been with the club 10 years now, in his 30s, early 30s, but he looks as fresh as ever. And as a right back, he does everything you can expect from him. He defends well these days, takes care of that side of the game, and he's great going forward as well. Links play with the winger really well, and he's still got the energy to get up and down that right side. So for me, if he's fit, he starts for us at right back. Zabani, Ilya Zabani, Ukrainian defender, outstanding. Been linked with a move away in the summer. We signed him for 20 odd million last year, but 18 months ago maybe, and he's been phenomenal for us. So he'll definitely be one of the centre backs. And I think all being well, Marcus Senesi hopefully will be the other one. Left back, I think Milos Kerkez, Hungarian left back, did well for Hungary in the Euros. You can get at him defensively. His defending is not the greatest, to be honest. He's great offensively, great going forward, but defensively he can be a little bit questionable. So that would be an area, if I was Forest, that I'd be looking to target in getting behind him defensively. But I think he'll be our left back. And then in the midfield, I would imagine we'll go with the two holders. Alex Scott, really talented lad that we got from Bristol City, has come into the fray again a little bit more in pre-season. He's been very prominent. But I think Ryan Christie and Lewis Cook will shore things up in that middle. They were phenomenal as a partnership last season. And as long as Lewis Cook, who's been a little bit part actually in pre-season, as long as he's injury-free, he's not carrying any type of injury and he's fit enough, I would imagine that Irioli goes with those two in the middle. And then number 10 is an interesting one. I think the 4, if you like, we play with a sort of a 4-2-1-3, if you like. I think the 4 attacking players will be Semenyo, Kluivert, Sinisterra, and Tavernier potentially. Now, what order they play in, I think that's very fluid and very flexible. Is a questionable one. Whether he plays Tavernier wide and Sinisterra in the 10, I think that could be an option with Semenyo on the other flank, and then Kluivert down the middle in the false 9, if you like. And that's very fluid. That could be mixed up and interchangeable as we go throughout the game. But I think they would be probably the front 4 positions. So that would be sort of my take at a predicted lineup, Matt.
We tried false 9 a few times, and when we came up, it's really hard to make it work. I know Man City did with Foden, but we couldn't make it work. We get loads of balls in the box, and there's no one there to stick them in. So it'd be interesting if it works. I think if that's how you go, certainly.
You've got to be that. I mean, Man City perfect it, don't they? But you look at the footballers and the intelligence they've got and the technical ability they've got to make that work. It's a challenge for the rest of us, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, massively. I like Zabani as well. It's interesting that because I play a lot of fantasy Premier League, and he was a player I barely noticed. And then you had like 3 games in a week, and suddenly he was in everyone's team. Him and Senesi.
Yeah.
And he looks so good, actually, Zabani. So I can see why people would want him. I went for Senesi, and he did his hamstring at Burnley about 2 minutes in, and that's the way it goes. But yeah, I was going to ask as well, just if we turn our attention to Forest, but from your point of view, a lot of people outside Nottingham, the media especially, are just absolutely like saying we're going to be 17th, we're going to go down, we're going to be rubbish again. I don't. You probably haven't had much chance to look at Forest in pre-season, but from what you saw last season and the fact we've kept our players and added a couple, are you thinking we might finish a bit higher? Or are you expect us to be down there again, kind of, or are we in that bracket with Bournemouth, Wolves, Fulham, where anything could happen in the bottom 8 or 9?
I think you're in that bracket, Matt. As you just said, I think you're in our bracket really. Bournemouth, Wolves, Fulham, Forest. I think we're all in that bracket. But my personal take on it is when you came up with us a couple of years ago, obviously you needed to have a different approach to the other 2 clubs that came up, because there was such a transition of players that you'd had on loan that were going back. So you needed to recruit. And that takes time. It takes time when you're signing players that are not necessarily going to be instant successes for you. You have to work with these players over a long period of time. And I think obviously, with the change of manager, I know you're all pretty disappointed on the whole when Cooper left the club and Santos obviously came in. But he's had a bit of time now also to work with these players. They've bedded in. They've had time to integrate into a system, into a squad. The manager's had time to get his style across to the players on the pitch. So I personally feel like you have got a lot of quality within that squad. And when I look at the two squads, Bournemouth and Forest, I don't think they're too dissimilar in terms of technical ability and quality. When you look at some of the transfer fees that you've paid and the players that you've bought in, I think some of them are just a work in progress. So I feel like this season you will be okay. I don't see you getting relegated at all. I think you will be okay. There's every chance that you could still add some bits to that squad before the window's out, and that's ever evolving, isn't it? We've got the January window to come as well. So personally speaking, from a neutral perspective, I think you'll be okay. I think your home ground and your crowd is an asset for you. I think you can use that to your advantage, and I think you've got the quality to hurt teams. You really have. And I think if you can just shore that up defensively a little bit, then I don't see you being in too much of a scrap this season.
Well, good to hear. Good to hear. You'll win Forest fans over with that. So which teams do you think are going to struggle? We did our preview show and pretty much everyone said the promoted three with a few different names thrown in. I think one of us had Brentford, one of us had Wolves, something like Everton was another one, but generally the promoted three. How are you viewing that relegation three, that final battle?
Yeah, I think it's just become so predictable that the relegated three are going to be the three that they're going to challenge in the Championship. And there's not many people that would argue against that again, is there? When you look at those squads and you look at the managers, you look at what they're capable of in the Championship. The three that have come up, you then look at their squads, don't you, and look at what they've got, and you think, well, I can't see anything other than them struggling. You've got a potential sort of points deduction looming over Leicester. I think Southampton have got a lot of work to do. Some of their, a lot of quality to add to their squad before they could even consider themselves, really competing at this level. And Ipswich probably the same. I know they've done a bit of good business, but they're playing catch. They're all playing catch up, aren't they? And that tends to be the case. So you can't look far beyond the bottom three. But I think there's always at least one club, Matt, in there each year that really has a shocker and that surprises everyone. And you think, I never expected them to be down there, to be honest. There's always one. Who's that going to be this year? It's difficult to predict. You could say a Brentford. I know since they've come up, the model that they've got and how they go about things has been fantastic, really progressive, and been great to see. But there's doubts over Ivan Toney, isn't there, whether he's going to stay with the club, and one or two of their other players have been linked away. Could they get sucked into it potentially? But looking at it as it stands, it's really difficult to see beyond the promoted three, really.
Yeah, I agree. I think if there is one, I said this on our show, like I'd look at Wolves and I think O'Neill did such a good job there last year, but they had loads of injuries at the end of last season. They didn't actually finish that well. Then they sell Neto and then they sell Kilman. Yeah, and you just wonder, like, can they keep doing it, and will that bubble burst? So I think they might be the one to get dragged in. I mean, putting you on the spot for a position where Bournemouth will finish, because we've done this all week. Loads of us have said 14th, 15th, 16th for Forest. What number would you put against Bournemouth's name with the window still open as a caveat?
Yeah, so it's so difficult to predict, Matt, isn't it, really? As it stands, we haven't signed Evanilson yet. We haven't signed Mamardashvili either, or any others that we're linked with. So as it stands, you'd have us, probably hovering above and around the relegation places as it stands. However, I'd like to think that business will be in place. It will get done, and we will significantly add even before this window is out. So I would be happy with anywhere around 12th upwards. We obviously finished 12th last season. Now, if we're bringing in the type of quality that we're talking about and adding some more with nobody else going out the door, and Iriola and the owners are talking about progression, constant progression on and off the field. We're crying out now for. We're never going to be the biggest club in the world, but we're now crying out for that new stadium. There's so many people across the conurbation, Bournemouth, Poole, Christchurch, and beyond, that kids and families that I speak to can't get to a game. We just 11,000 is just not suitable. It's not suitable barely for the Championship, let alone the Premier League. So the sooner that happens, the better. I know the owners, going to put that in place in the next few years. The training ground is going to be something really, really special. That's nearly completed. That looks really, really fantastic, and up there with the best in the Premier League, best in class, which is what the new owners want to do. But they also want to do it on the field. There's talk of Europe within the next few years. Now, people looking from the outside in would look at that and think, blimey, that's a little bit ambitious, surely, isn't it, for a club like Bournemouth? But these owners are ambitious. They're Americans, and they want to reach the very top. They want to do everything they can to push the club on. So I think it will be seen as a failure, Matt. Anything below, where we finished last year. So I would predict around that position. I would predict sort of 12th, 11th, 10th, if I'm being totally honest and optimistic as a Bournemouth fan.
I heard an interview with the owner. Is it Bill Foley? Is that his name?
Bill Foley, yeah.
Yeah, I heard an interview with him on 5 Live. And at the time, it was when Iraola was, you were really struggling. He's like, there's no way we're getting relegated. We'll finish mid-table. So he's obviously, he's got that American sports mentality. How big is the new ground that you're kind of pitching for then? Like 25,000 or something?
Yeah, it's going to be, ultimately, it's going to end up about 22,500. No, we're limited. We've got to work with the BCP Council. But the Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole is a population of 500,000 people. Yes, you could say there's a transient population. There's obviously a retirement element to it. There's a big, obviously, student population in the area as well. A lot of people that don't come from the area. But when you've got 500,000 people, and then you go to the outer areas as well, we're a Premier League football club. It should be able to, support a 25,000 seater stadium. So that's what Bill Foley's aiming for. I think 22.5 he's trying to get it to ultimately, but he's got to break down the barriers with the council, make it viable in terms of the infrastructure around it. Because obviously in Kings Park, where we're at, we've had this 11,000 seater forever, really, for a long time. And it's sort of served a purpose. So when you're talking about doubling the footfall and doubling the travel network and infrastructure, everything that has to go around that, there's a lot of work that has to be put in place. He's on about building a new stadium behind the current one. So there's so much to sort of factor into it. It's not something that can happen overnight, but it needs to happen as soon as it possibly can, really, if we're to sustain ourselves, really, and keep pushing on as a Premier League football club.
Yeah, it's been a big conversation for us as well. I mean, obviously, it's a bit different for Forest fans because they don't want to move, but they do want to develop the City ground, and that's
Absolutely.
kind of where we're at. But like you say, it's like a 10 to 15 year battle / journey. So it's not an easy one to solve overnight. Just lastly, before we finish, I normally ask about strengths and weaknesses for your team, but probably can't really answer that yet. But are there any Forest players that you're looking at, from seasons gone by, where you think, oh, they can actually hurt us, and I'm a little bit worried about them?
Always Gibbs White for me. Always Gibbs White. I just think that he can do so much damage on his day, and he's always been a threat whenever we've played. He looks a threat, to be honest. So he's the one player that I would be fearful of. I think Alanga and Hudson-Odoi with what they can offer in terms of their power. I'm not sure if you're thinking they'll both start on Saturday. I mean, Chris Wood offers something different as well. Is he in the frame, do you think, for these players in the frame?
Yeah, I think they'll all start. Yeah, Chris Wood. Obviously, Taiwo Awoniyi would really be pushing him for that start, but he's had very limited minutes in pre-season. And when you were talking about Kirkez, and he likes to get forwards, and then I really hope we play Alanga, and we're really positive because he's so quick and he can hurt teams. It's interesting. We've got a real good mix in midfield now with Elliot Anderson's come in. He can play a lot of positions. We've got that depth that I guess you found when you come up. Like you need probably 17 or 18 good players, and we didn't necessarily have that for a while. So they're the players I'd be looking at. And then for you, Semenyo worries me. I mean, is he a player that just lasted before we finish? Is he waiting for that breakout season? Is it just bubbling under for him?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, 100%. I mean, he had a phenomenal season last year, to be honest. When I played football, I don't play anymore. I'm getting too old for it, Matt, but I was a right back. And if I had anyone like that running at you with pace and power that he's got, coming inside, using both feet, he'd frighten the life out of you. And that's what he's done to the defenders, really, from last year onwards. He can play either flank as well. So he's a real menace, really. And he's adding goals to his game as well as some assists. So he's been a work in progress, but he's come on phenomenally in the last sort of year or so. Really, when we signed him from Bristol City, he was a little bit raw. I think they used him as a number 9 more than they did as a winger in a 3-pronged attack, and he's just really flourished, Matt. So you bang on. I think if I was a Forest fan, I'd be fearful of Semenyo. He'd be one of the main threats that I would be looking out for, definitely.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really good battle. I'm really looking forward to the game.
It always is, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really close game. Obviously, I know, like you've had like you say, you've had our number a lot, but I think they're 2 really closely matched sides, and all the games that we've lost probably could have gone our way on another day. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, certainly. If people have enjoyed this, as ever, do us a favor and hit like on this video. It makes a big difference. Do subscribe, become a member, and give us a lovely review on iTunes. It all helps. We shall be back tomorrow for the post-match show, a little later, about 8 p.m. now, because I'm actually going to the game. I've got managed to get hold of a ticket, so looking forward to that. And then back on Monday after that. Matt, so thank you so much for joining us. You were saying before, when you got in, you've literally got in from work and jumped on the computer. So really grateful, and good luck for the season.
Yeah, good luck. And it's great to be on there. It's great to have this chat. And that, as much as we're, rivals in a sense in the Premier League, we want to take points off each other and everything, all the backstory that's gone with it. At the end of the day, we're football fans, aren't we? And we've all got our own opinions. Everybody's got theirs, and it's great to hear it. Great to have the chat, Matt. So really appreciate you bringing me on. It's been an absolute pleasure. And let's look forward to a great game on Saturday, which I think it has all the ingredients to be, as you rightly said, 2 very evenly matched squads for me, as you've said as well, Matt. So let's hope for a good one, and let's hope we both have a good season in the Premier League and keep defying the odds, really.
Hopefully so. I think people enjoy these previews. 19 out of the guests of the 20 guests were well received last year, and people who watch this will know who the 20th one was. I'm sure they'll drop in the comments, but you'll get good reviews, don't worry. So yeah, have a good day, everyone. If we don't see you tomorrow, then we shall see you soon.